This video comes to you in two very different parts. In the grade school I went to, 8th grade was the year that everyone read To Kill a Mockingbird. It was like that for years before I was in 8th grade, and it is still like that years after I was in 8th grade. However, in the August before my 8th grade year, our English teacher quit and moved to a different school, and left with such short notice, our science and math teachers were left to teach us English. When something like this happens, the curriculum has to be changed. Thus, our 8th grade year is probably the only class of students graduating from our school that did not read To Kill a Mockingbird. As an English major and a bookworm and a reader in general, I feel like this is just a book I had to read. It wasn't out of any desire to actually read the book, just to say I had read it. I was a theater kid in high school, and when it was announced that our fall play my senior year was going to be To Kill a Mockingbird, I kind of put that as a deadline, like, you have to read this book before you put on this play. So that summer I kind of put it on my list of books to read during the summer. I told myself I would read it in Scotland, but then I was in Scotland and I was like, I don't want to read books, I want to see castles and eat sandwiches. And then I was going to read it on the plane ride home from Scotland, but then I had a copy of Looking for Alaska with me and I was like, this seems like a good time to reread Looking for Alaska. And then school started, and you know how hard it is to read for fun when you're in school. And then the play was over and I lost all motivation. I never actually watched the whole play, so I still didn't know the plot though. Eventually, this past August, I finally made myself read this book. To be fair to this book, I went in with a very negative attitude that could have very well affected my reading experience. This book was really slow to start for me and I didn't like it at all. I felt like I was forcing my way through it, which I was. When the courtroom scene came along, things started moving a lot faster and they became a lot more interesting. I remember on Goodreads I was going to give it 2 out of 5 stars, but then I actually really liked the ending part of it, so I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. Of course I'm glad I read it because I'm still of the opinion that I have to have read it. But it wasn't an enjoyable read for me and I'm not really sure what the big hype is. Sorry. And now for a drastically different part 2. In general, I don't watch that many movies. Usually when I'm watching a movie, I'm thinking about how I could be reading a book. I probably see like 5 movies in theaters each year, and that's gonna go way down now that there's no more Harry Potter movies coming out. But there are a few specific movies that I will watch over and over and over because they are so fantastic, and Scott Pilgrim is one of those. Maggie, what are you talking about? This is a book review video blog, not a movie review. Yeah, when I first watched it, I had no idea that it was a book. Well, it's a graphic novel, but that's kind of book. Otherwise, I wouldn't have watched it. I don't watch movies of books I haven't read. When I found out that Scott Pilgrim was originally a graphic novel, it made a lot of sense. I actually think that it works better in the movie, though, because it's funnier to have a movie that's in comic book style than to have a graphic novel that's in comic book style, because that's what all graphic novels really are. Anyway, I've only read the first 2 volumes of Scott Pilgrim, but I definitely want to read the rest. If you read the first one, you'll notice it is almost exactly word for word the movie, which is fine with me because the movie is so good. If I had read it first, I would have watched the movie and been like, oh awesome, they adapted it really well. But going from seeing the movie and then going and reading the book, it was kind of like, oh, this is like I'm watching the movie again, which is totally fine with me. But I know I talked to someone at some point who's kind of put off. They were like, yeah, it's just like the movie, why should I bother? The second one, however, is very different, not only in like the dialogue and the scenes, but also in where the plot is taken. One thing that's kind of interesting about the graphic novels is that they have to find some way to portray music because they're in a band and they're singing songs, playing songs. And in the movie we can just listen to it, it makes sense, but in the book they have to find some other way to do that. They have the lyrics written on the page, but then they also have the chords going across the page. So I thought it was really cool that they even had chords to the songs even though we weren't listening to them. It was a really good way of conveying music in written form. What I love about the Scott Pilgrim movies and graphic novels is that I don't have to choose one over the other because they're so similar and they have the same essence, and so I love both of them a whole lot. This is the same thing that happens with The Princess Bride, by the way. So right now I'm going to recommend to you Scott Pilgrim, but I'm not going to tell you to watch the movie or read the graphic novels. You can do either one, except actually you should watch the movie because Michael Cera is adorable. So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to reading the rest of those. And I also want to get into more graphic novels. I really want to read Persepolis and I want to read Sandman by Neil Gaiman. I'm not really into superhero comic book kind of things, but I am into graphic novels. I used to read a lot of mangas, so if you have any suggestions of anything like that, I would really appreciate it. See ya!